if I'm a company trying to build AI models, how do I know that I'm complying with all of these policies, all these regulations coming out? It's impossible. It's very, very difficult for a company building AI models to know if they are doing the right thing. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the next episode of Unlock the AI Advantage podcast. I'm your host, Ramesh Danta. If you've been following this podcast, you know that in our previous episodes, we covered what are the advantages that AI has to offer that you could potentially unlock. That's one. The other one is, what are the 4 different ways actually you could unlock the AI advantages? Now, if I were in the audience, if I'm listening to the podcast, and my next question would be, fine, it's good. There are advantages, I believe, that AI can offer. And you told me there are 4 different ways I can participate in this AI revolution that's happening. But now tell me specifically how in, the specific steps, right? Yeah, so far we introduced the concept. So in this episode, I'll be walking you through very specific steps how certain companies are actually offering the advantages that you can unlock. And in the process, we will be traveling with them in their journey of how they are using AI so they can offer products and services as well. So today's episode is all about 3 case studies that I'm going to bring to you. I'll introduce 3 companies to you that are actually using AI to unlock advantages for themselves. But in the process, they're also building companies that deliver products and services so you could potentially benefit from them. So that's what today's episode is all about. So now let me go back to the very first episode where we talked about what AI is doing. AI is doing a lot of things faster, cheaper, and smarter, right? If I were to boil down what AI is doing faster, cheaper, and smarter. Now, the very first company that I'm going to introduce to you is about making application development using AI faster, cheaper, and smarter. So this is a startup that delivers these app making, services at a very affordable price. So if I'm a business owner, or if I have a startup, or if I'm a large enterprise as well, one of the things that in this digital era that I have to do is I have to build applications. If you know anything about application building, you know it's a laborious and time-consuming process, and in the process, of course, it is expensive. So the process goes somewhat like this, right? Initially, you have a set of requirements, and then you give these requirements to the analyst. And the analyst takes these requirements and helps translate into technical requirements that the development team can go and build, and they come back with some user designs, and then you say, yeah, it's good or bad, and then afterwards, they will refine them, and then afterwards, they actually do the development, right? It could be, there is an application as a front end, there's a back end, it's a cloud hosting, all those decisions go into making the app. But it's a time-consuming process, very iterative, right? So you give the requirements, they come back, and then you refine the requirements, and then deliver something, a prototype, and then you give your feedback on that. It's a very iterative process. So here is a startup that wants to revolutionize this application building, make it faster, cheaper, and in the process, smarter. It's a company called Apsy.io, APSY.io, and it's a startup based in the US. And what they are doing is they built a conversational front end to this their app building. So you actually talk to this intelligent AI-driven, call it chatbot or a smart agent, and then you tell them, I want an application that has a login, standard login, user ID login, or it has a Facebook login or a Google login, right? And then afterwards, you're talking to that, to the engine. And then you say, I want a membership site, and I want a payment module, and I want a marketplace, right? So any of those requirements, you actually talk to them. You don't even have to write it down. And then the smart engine actually can prompt you for additional questions. Okay, is that right? Okay, so if you want a membership, how many levels of membership, right? You could talk to it. And based on in the information that you provide, so Apsy.io, what it does is it comes back with a prototype of applications literally in days. In some cases, it could be hours. So we are talking about building prototypes applications from months and weeks to days and hours. Of course, time is money. So as a result, you will have applications at a much cheaper. And especially if I'm a startup, all right? So all I want is a POC, something that I want to go to show investors, right? I don't want to spend multiple months. I don't want to spend, thousands and thousands of dollars to build the prototype, and later on, the prototype might not even do anything, right? It might not even fly. So in that case, then I have to rebuild. But in this case, I can build a POC, a prototype, much faster, much quicker, and then so apps it delivers it. So the question is, how are they doing it? Definitely, they're using AI for the smart agent, the conversational piece of it that's taking the requirements. But they also were able to templatize the applications in the backend. Applications fall into X number of modules. There's a login module, there is a payment module. So they're able to, use those modules to stitch the application together in a much more consumable way and much faster. So what we'll be doing is not just introduce the company to you in subsequent podcasts. We will be talking to the founder and CEO of the company, but we will also be tracking their journey. So that is something different about this podcast that you don't see anywhere else. So we'll be bringing the startups, we'll be bringing company founders who are actually, digging deep into AI. But instead of just one episode, we'll be tracking their journey. How are they being built? How are they raising funds? How are they delivering the products and services? How are they building the customer pipeline? All of those things that we'll be tracking over a period of multiple episodes, how they're unlocking the AI advantages. So that's the first one. So this is about making application building faster, cheaper, and smarter using AI. And in the process, we'll be tracking their journey in the future episodes. All right. Now, the second company, a second case study, second example of how companies are unlocking the AI advantages. So we all have done email marketing, right? So we get hundreds of emails a day from different companies bombarding us the email. And you, of course, whether you like it or hate it, the email marketing, please know it works, right? Of all the ways of reaching somebody, email is still the best way to reach somebody. So email marketing is there. So, but the biggest challenge in email marketing is if you are the one who is sending the emails to reach your customer, target customer. So there are a few metrics that are very important. One is open rate, okay? What is the percentage of people who are actually opening the emails? And what makes them open these emails? So that is a conundrum. That's a puzzle that people who are sending emails trying to solve. And the second most important metric is click-through rate, CTR. Okay, so what makes people open the emails, and what makes them click inside the email to specific links? So people play with different parameters like a send time, what time they should send, and how long should the email be, and how many characters should be in the subject line, and what's the mix between graphics, video, and text in the email itself, right? So all of those are different factors that play a role, especially, let's say, if you're a retailer, you're trying to send some coupons and you want to make sure that people open the emails and then actually click on the coupons to take advantage of this sales coupons. You want to play with all these parameters. What time can I send? How long should the email be? And should I send a video? Should I have a graphic? Or should I just have text, right? So don't worry, AI comes to the rescue here. So there's a company, the second company that I'm going to introduce. It's called Lox.com, Loxz.com, Lox Digital. What are they doing? It's an AI company. They're building real-time machine learning models that will help companies optimize all these parameters I talked about. So they have a model that tells them what is the character. So they help predict even before the email is sent out, right? So they have machine learning models, right? They've built the predictive models along with also prescriptive, right? So they tell, hey, this is the prediction. X number of people are going to open your emails with this email. And by the way, if you change this graphics to text ratio a little bit, you could have, instead of 12%, 14% might open your emails. So even they prescribe the solution by saying that, change this parameter. Instead of sending it at this point of time for your targeted audience, you should send in the evenings. You might increase your open rate by certain few percentages. So Locks has built this predictive and prescriptive real-time machine learning models for different aspects of email marketing, right? So things like character count I mentioned, things like text to graph and videos, and what time should they be sending. So essentially, even they help optimize even the fonts, right? So because how are they doing it? So they're going back. They've built a large, database, okay, with the in their repository, and then they also have a generative AI capabilities in their engine. So using the past historical records of how the open rates have been, what the click-through rates have been for different text graphic, different send times, all those information is there in their large database. And then they use generative AI to come up with the predictive and prescriptive models for the email marketers to help them with their campaigns. So customers can, the email marketers can increase the open rates, can increase the click-through rates, and in the process, of course, so bottom line, results. So that's that. So we'll be talking to the Locks founder in the subsequent episodes, and we will be learning about how they are delivering, how they're unlocking the AI advantage. But not only that, we'll be tracking their progress. How did they start? How did they raise funds? How did the startup itself start the journey? So that is, again, as I keep saying, that's a differentiating factor about this podcast. It's not about learning how to do it, but in the process, also learn about building companies, how these entrepreneurs are doing. All right. So now the third case study, third example that we'll be bringing, at least in the initial episodes of Unlocking the AI Advantage podcast. So we all are concerned about how AI is getting built, right? So there is an ethical component to it, right? Is AI biased, right? Are they using biased models, right? So we heard these headlines, we read these headlines many times, which is that, hey, my mortgage application was rejected, and then they use AI models, and then they use certain factors, it could be race, sex, or income, location, where they're from, and then because the models, the data that they use is a biased data, so what the models spit out themselves are biased. So I don't want to talk about specific examples. We know the large companies have been penalized for using these models where they've rejected certain gender from the mortgages, especially during COVID. Also, that happened, and certain people living in certain neighborhoods also have been rejected, and those kinds of things. So, are these models fair, right? And then we also read about students. The prediction about student success factors, all of them. Again, the data could be biased, and if you use the bias and there are no guidelines, there are checkpoints, then the results these AI models will spit out themselves will be biased. Okay, so and then as a result, what's happening? The governments and regulatory agencies are coming to the picture, right? We heard about European Regulation Act. We heard about Singapore, Canada. Lots of governments are taking a proactive role to put certain guidelines, and then in the US as well, lots of regulatory agencies are jumping into the fray. So now, if I'm a company trying to build AI models, how do I know that I'm complying with all of these policies, all these regulations coming out? It's impossible. It's very, very difficult for a company building AI models to know if they are doing the right thing, unless, of course, you're consciously making sure that the bias is minimal, and you are able to pick all kinds of data models that do not let the bias creep in. It's a very, very difficult task. So that's where Fairly.ai comes to rescue. It's a third case study, third company, Fairly.ai. So what they are trying to do is make compliance needs for AI, put them all together in one spot. Okay. So they're the ones, the company, what it does is it monitors the policies, it monitors the regulations, it monitors the compliance needs for specific industries. Like, for example, finance is very heavily regulated industry, right? So finance industry might have specific regulations that relate to AI that are different from, let's say, e-commerce. So Fairly.ai puts all of these compliance regulations into the software, and then it helps companies implementing AI follow the regulations, right? So they're automating the process of following in the compliance through their software. Again, so we will be bringing the founders of Fairly.ai in future episodes, and we will hear from them. And in addition, we will also track the journey, how they're able to build their AI startup, an ethical, fair implementation of AI kind of a startup, which is different from the previous two companies that I talked about, right? So they're helping companies, build AI models in a very ethical and fair manner. So we'll be talking with the founders and how they're building the startup, and we'll be learning through their journey. So there are 3 specific examples, case studies that we'll be walking through, so we can learn how to unlock the AI advantages. The first one is about making applications develop faster, cheaper, and smarter way. So I have my application in hours to days as opposed to, weeks and months. And the second startup that will be talking to, a company that will be tracking, is the one that helps, as an example, putting real-time machine learning models to help with the email market. But those real-time ML models can be applied to lots of others. It can help predict, like, for example, CPI, right? So we will know how Lox is delivering and using their engines, real-time ML models, to not just for email marketing, to other specific examples as well. Okay. And the third company is how a startup is helping companies build ethical and fair AI models as they are unlocking the advantages. Okay. So then how can you participate? How will you know who we're bringing? Is by going to theAIentrepreneurs.com, and subscribing to the newsletter, where we'll be talking about the different podcast episodes that we're bringing, the guests, and then, of course, tracking the journey of the startup founders through this Unlocking the AI Advantage podcast. So go to theAIentrepreneurs.com, subscribe, and follow our journey as we follow the journey of the startups that I mentioned, Appsy, Logs, and Fairly, and many more, of course. All right. So that's a wrap for today. So stay tuned and go to theAIentrepreneurs.com. Thank you.